Request rearming.
Copy. Rearming complete.
Hmm. Yes, exactly. And then finally, I watched Palm Springs. I got a screener of this. This is a movie that played at Sundance, and Ben saw it, and I seem to remember this was like a really hot ticket at Sundance, and the first time Ben tried to see it, he didn't even get in because they like oversold the screening or something like that. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
I remember like a lot of people were just like furious, like, how dare you, Palm Springs. Anyway, this is fun. I don't think it's fantastic. It's another one of those, Groundhog Day time loop movies where, someone relives the same day over and over again. And it does have some clever twists on it. There's just some plot threads that don't quite work. Like, there's this entire subplot with J.K. Simmons. I won't spoil what it is, but I don't think it works at all. And I was like, why is this in the movie? It shouldn't be here because it's like distracting. But it's a fun, entertaining film. Andy Samberg is really good in it. The lead actress, whose name I don't have in front of me right now,
it's Kristen Milioti.
Yes, she's good in it, and it's got some good laughs, and it does some clever things with the time loop element. So yeah, it's worth a watch. This will be on Hulu at some point this month. I don't know the exact date, but
July 10th is when it's scheduled for release.
Yeah, that's going right to Hulu, and I think it's going to drive-ins too. So take your pick.
And so that's all you've been watching. Ben, what have you been watching this week?
I really only watched one movie that I think is worth mentioning. It's a film called Stay Tuned from 1992. Has anyone here ever seen this by any chance?
I loved this as a kid.
I know this movie. Okay, I literally never heard of it before, and I stumbled across it on Amazon Prime Video. Has anybody else seen it?
I have. This and Mom and Dad Save the World always get confused because they came out at the same time, and they have like the same sort of premise, and they're both not good.
Yeah, I think I've only ever seen bits and pieces of both, and like Chris, I always confuse them too.
I actually I kind of had fun with this movie, like having no idea of really what to expect, except for this is a movie where people get sucked into a television, and it came out in 1992, and it stars John Ritter and Pam Dauber from Mork and Mindy. I guess I had my expectations set pretty low. Peter Hyams directed this thing. He's the guy behind movies like Time Cop and Sudden Death, which this movie is nothing like either of those films, but it's basically just about this guy who loves watching TV, and he's like sort of a middle-aged schlub who doesn't value his family or anything, and he just would rather watch TV than do anything else, and he's obsessed. And Jeffrey Jones, who played the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, plays the devil's right-hand man, basically, like hell's top TV executive, because the premise of the movie is that Satan loves watching television, but he evidently doesn't like just watching normal TV. He likes watching human beings sucked into TV and then like run through a gauntlet of a bunch of different shows that are kind of close to shows that were on TV in 1992, but not exactly right. So this whole thing is like a satire of TV, and it's TV and movies too. There are parts where the characters get sucked into this TV, and basically they just hop channels throughout the whole film as they're trying to figure out their way out of this scenario. And if they can survive for 24 hours, they get released back into the real world. So it's a really goofy premise. It's actually a pretty goofy movie as well. But I think I just came away being pretty impressed with like how much movie is crammed into this thing. It's only 88 minutes long, but there are tons of locations and costume changes and different styles that are employed as these characters jump through these channels. And Eugene Levy is in this as like an ass-kissing demon underling who works for Jeffrey Jones's character. Eric King, who played Dokes on Dexter, is really young in this movie, and he plays this ambitious intern who's looking to try to basically knock Jeffrey Jones's demon off of his perch. You never actually see Satan in the movie, which I found slightly disappointing because the movie just paints him out to be like, or basically it lays him up to be like this being who's just like constantly watching TV, and I just really wanted to see how the movie would actually visualize that. Like, what kind of TV does Satan watch? But the movie never really goes there, but it's super, super cheesy. Really, really. I have a hard time recommending it with a straight face, but I do feel like the premise is really interesting and would be a perfect candidate for a modern remake. If another studio or something could get the rights to all of the different IP that are, that make up the popular TV shows and stuff like that are on the air right now, and could have characters jump into those worlds, which sounds like a a pretty an uphill battle for any any studio to be able to do that. But I think the results could be really, really cool. So there's definitely some cringeworthy stuff in here, but I, at the end of the day, kind of found myself loosely enjoying Stay Tuned. So it's on Amazon Prime Video if you want to check that out.
And I think what you didn't mention, unless I missed it, is that some of these TV shows, or many of these TV shows, are kind of like parodies. So, like, there's like Three Men and Rosemary's Baby.
Correct.
There's
Yes.
like Northern Overexposure. So it's all about the puns.
There's Murder She Likes and 30-something to Life, where people are in prison for life sentences. Yeah, there's some really, really stupid ones too. That's actually like one, I guess, emblematic of the movie as a whole, because some of them I feel like are like, oh yeah, that's kind of clever, and then there's some that are like Dwayne's Underworld, which is like a riff on Wayne's World, where it's like, all right, you went a little too far for that one. Like it's not quite as natural a joke as you could have gotten somewhere else. And then there's one that I remember from that riffs on My Three Sons, but it's just My Three Sons of Bitches. Like, that's just lazy. Like, come on. So, if you actually get like a writer who cares, I think, and who puts some extra work into finding those puns, maybe hire Megan Amram, who is like a famous, she writes a bunch of stuff, and she's written for Parks and Recreation, The Good Place, and all that, and like a lot of the puns in the background on The Good Place are sort of attributed to her. So maybe get her to write a Stay Tuned remake. I would watch the hell out of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would recommend this, but I enjoyed it as a kid, and I do feel like there's something here. Like, I remember a few years ago, they had that movie Grindhouse, which was Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. They made these fake Grindhouse movies, and in between it, they had these trailers, like made by like Edgar Wright and Eli Roth. And I remember for a few years, people loved these trailers. Like, what was the trailer? Like Thanksgiving?
Yeah, and like Machete was one of them, and that turned into a full-length movie.
I know Eli Roth for a few years was saying that he was going to make a movie with these trailers. He had this idea of a way to make it so it's not just a bunch of trailers, that there was a story throughout. And I was thinking maybe it was going to be something like Stay Tuned, where someone gets trapped in, the old horror movies.
A museum of trailers that he has in his house or something. That would be kind of cool.
I don't know, but I definitely think there's probably some way to reboot this for modern audiences. But yeah, Jacob, this feels like something you must have seen.
I've never heard of it until I read Ben's article about it the other day.
Oh wow. Okay, moving on. HC, what have you been watching?
Well, Peter, I watched a pretty foul new movie this week. Hey, you know what? Chris said it first on Twitter, and actually, I considered making that part, like that fun part of my headline in my review for Artemis Fowl on the site, but I couldn't find one that might indicate my rage and irritation at this adaptation. Artemis Fowl is a new movie directed by Kenneth Branagh that hits Disney Plus today, and I will just tell everyone, don't watch it. A little background. I was a big fan of the Artemis Fowl books written by Owen Culver growing up. First book was published in 2001, and Owen Culver famously described it or pitched it as Die Hard with Fairies, which sounds like a very silly premise, and it is. It's just, it was such a fun and tongue-in-cheek and kind of radical book for young readers, and like myself back then, who were mostly used to fantasy books that painted a pretty black and white picture of good versus evil heroes and villains. And in Artemis Fowl, your protagonist is the villain. He's a 12-year-old boy genius / criminal mastermind who basically pulls off this kidnapping of a fairy in order to ransom it for 1 ton of wool. And he's depicted as a really remorseless and ruthless type of character who gets sort of redeemed further on in later books. But it was so fun and refreshing reading that book when I was young and seeing this character who's just pretty unsympathetic and having him be the antagonist that all the other characters have to either overcome or try to make better. And there is like some glimmers of sympathy within it, and that was kind of what was fun. It was a little bit more morally gray kind of YA books than what I was used to. And there's, I don't know how many books there are now. I have about 7 of them. I think it kept going, and it never really had a big endpoint like Harry Potter. Each book was basically a new sort of heist that was bigger in scale and bigger in state. And the way that Owen Culver wrote was just really fun and tongue-in-cheek, and also filled with puns. Like the leprechauns, for example, are actually the LEP recons, of like a police force within the fairy underworld, and it's like a fun little pun based off of leprechaun. So there's a lot of little things like that. It's just like a very fun, not high literature in the slightest, but it was just such a unique and refreshing book that felt like antithesis almost to all the Harry Potters and fantasy books that are coming out in the wake of Harry Potter. And so all of that fun, unique, refreshing elements of Artemis Fowl are completely gone and erased in the Kenneth Branagh version. They just took everything that made this property so interesting and bastardized it and just ran it through the mill of just making it as generic and tepid and boring as possible. And it's filmed in such an inert way too, with CGI that looks like it came out of the early 2000s. And the dialogue is wooden. It has no fun with it, and it just completely sands down the title character too, and tries to turn him into a more synthetic hero. And I had actually kind of dreaded watching this screener before I got assigned the review. I had visited the set of Artemis Fowl back in 2018, and immediately just couldn't tell that this was going to be a complete departure from the source material in a way that felt very sleek and Disney-fied and completely toothless, and I absolutely hated it. I was so angry, and writing the set visit report, I was probably like the angriest I had been writing something. I was just like, oh god, I don't want to write about this, and then I ended up writing like 1,000 words in my review, so you can read that later. But there's just so many issues with this movie, regardless of whether it is a good adaptation or not. It's just not a good movie. It has the plot just consists of things that happen with no build-up and have no bearing on the overall narrative arc. Josh Gad I don't know what he's doing. He has like this throaty Christian Bale like in Batman Begins rasp the entire time, and the movie begins with him narrating, which as soon as that happened I was like, oh no, I have to hear this for like the rest of the movie. And he keeps doing it, and like the movie just kind of lets him run free with his improv, none of which is very funny. And maybe your mileage may vary based on how much you enjoy Josh Gad, but do not. There's a lot of him here, and none of it is good. And Judi Dench is also doing a weird raspy voice too. I felt like they were doing some sort of weird rasp off, and I don't know what was happening. None of the performances are good, and there's just like some also very eyebrow raising sort of racial caricatures in this movie that I don't think existed in the books, at least, or weren't like as obvious. At least one of the things was like a recasting with Nonzo Nosey, who was cast as the Artemis Fowl's bodyguard, whose name is Butler. And I feel like they didn't realize the real problems that came with casting a black man as a character named Butler, who is part of a long line of characters named Butler who has served the family for generations. And I don't think they realized all this going into that. In the book, he's described as like a Eurasian character, and it's just, I feel like that was part of Veronic's wanting to cast one of his friends and not realizing the implications of that. But there's also just like some imagery with the goblins and them being dressed in costumes that basically imply that they are black. So it's just it's not good. It's not a good movie, guys. Don't like it. What else?
It also sounds like, I mean, I know Jacob said in the Slack channel he was a little worried that maybe you're just like the film was based on having an attachment to the source material and it being so different. But it turns out everybody hates this one.
Yeah. No, I kept my expectations low for how close the source material would be, because I just knew going in that it was going to be different. But even then, knowing that, it's just a badly made movie.
Yeah. What else have you been watching?
Other movies I've been watching. I watched a film called I'm No Longer Here, which is a Mexican drama written and directed by Fernando Villas de la Parra. It's on Netflix. I think it was a festival darling of some sort. It screened at several festivals, including the Tribeca Film Festival, and I think a couple other ones. But it follows a young boy in Monterrey, Mexico, a teenager who is part of this counterculture of Colombia, which is like this lifestyle that consists of dancing to a music called cumbia. I'm gonna butcher this word. I'm sorry. Cumbia rebajada, which is a slowed down version of cumbia, and it's a really interesting snapshot and like look into this counterculture that I was not aware of, and that I'm sure is like very rarely depicted on screen. This counterculture, mostly they wear really baggy clothes and really eccentric hairstyles, and they just want to dance and to this music the entire time, and it's almost like this sweet slice of life film, except for the fact that this teenager Ulysses gets in trouble with the local gangs and has to flee to America and to survive, and he ends up in New York City where he tries to build life for himself. But he is really isolated and feels just very alienated because of like his love for this music that no people, even like people of the Mexican communities that he hangs out with, can really understand. And it's really kind of meandering and sweet little cultural snapshot of cultural identity, and it's a wonderful film, and I really enjoyed it, and it has like this great energy and rhythm to it, and kind of reminds me of less of like immigrant dramas, but more just of those kind of journeys of self-actualization that you see in some like something. I agree that it's quite a bit of my time right here on Netflix, and I also watched Constitution, which is the AMD movie 2007 starring and this is a movie that famously is one of the most erotic films, I think, all time. I think it's on several of those lists. It's got slapped with an NC-17 rating, and I think it got the lead actress banned from acting in China for a bit just because of her participation in the abundant sex scenes in this film. It's based off of a 1979 novella by Eileen Chang, and apparently inspired by the real life life of a Chinese spy named Zhang Pingru, who attempts to assassinate a Japanese collaborator. And so it's set in 1930s, 1940s Hong Kong, and it follows a group of university students who attempt to stage an assassination of a Chinese official who's working for the puppet government ruled by the Japanese army. And it's an espionage film that is incredibly sensual. It ends up the students end up using the most attractive member of their group to try to seduce this official and trap him. But it's also incredibly long. It's about 2 hours and 39 minutes. And I have to say, like, even though it's famous for being like erotic films, back a couple of the sex scenes, I actually enjoyed the first half of the film a little bit more, where it was a lot of moody sort of espionage with the sensuality, sensual undertones were there, but they weren't quite as explicit as like the second half of the film. But it ends up being more of like a riff off of a sexy riff of Hitchcock's Notorious, the film starring Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman. And I always enjoy a sexy Notorious riff, but and I think that like it's a really sumptuously shot and richly made film with some great performances from Tony Leung and Tan Wei. But yeah, I kind of cut back a couple, even at the point that just like towards like this third or fourth like explicit sex scene, I was like, all right, the plot's kind of slowing down a little bit, guys. But it's a beautifully made film, and it's streaming now on Netflix.
Very cool. Okay, let's move on to what we've been eating. Brad, what have you been eating this week?
Tried some new treats. There's a new flavor of Pringles yet again. Both Pringles and Oreo. It seems like they have new flavors all the time. This one you can only get in Walgreens, and it's a sweet corn flavor. I actually really like it a lot. It's the buttery flavor definitely comes out first, and then you get the sweetness that does resemble that of sweet corn if you had it corn on the cob. It also kind of reminds me if they made like a popcorn flavored Pringle, which would be something that seems useless because if you want popcorn, maybe just have popcorn. But at the same time, if you want sweet corn, maybe just have sweet corn. But I always just like trying these weird flavors. So yeah, this one's actually a pretty good one, a unique flavor that they haven't really given to a potato chip before, at least not that I have seen. So that's only at Walgreens. You can get that one. I also found this different flavor of Swedish fish that are based on crushed soda flavors. So they're the little mini Swedish fish, and they have orange, strawberry, pineapple, and grape. And they don't really have the same kind of like carbonated soda flavor that you get when you get gummies that are created from various soda flavors, or even like jelly beans that have soda flavors. But they're still pretty good if you like Swedish fish. It's a nice change of pace from the regular flavor and even the other tropical flavor and artificial fruit that they have. And then this isn't really necessarily anything special, or at least it won't seem like it, but I got a root beer float from Arby's. And, it's whatever, because root beer floats, you can get them at a lot of different places. Usually they're really only good if you get them out of like a nice frosty glass mug. But for whatever reason, I don't know if it was just because it was hot on this particular day, or if I was just craving one after I heard it, but this was such a good root beer float, and a part of me thinks it's because it seems like that they use soft serve ice cream in it, so that the ice cream dissipates into root beer, not super quickly, but quickly enough that after a few minutes, it's basically like you're drinking a root beer float milkshake, which is awesome. And it reminded me of, actually, there was a while back, like a few years ago, Burger King had a Dr. Pepper milkshake, and I loved that so much, and I was really disappointed when it was taken away. But the way Arby's makes their root beer floats and how quickly the ice cream mixes with the root beer is the closest, basically, that I've seen to getting something akin to that, and it was just really good. So if you want a nice, cheap, quick root beer float, and you don't have like a drive-in kind of restaurant anywhere near you, I would say go get a root beer float from Arby's.
I would have never thought that Arby's root beer float would be something you bring.
I didn't think so either, and it's, I saw that they had them, and I was like, well, that's weird, but whatever, and I was craving one and tried it, and here we are today.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to what we've been playing, Jacob. Besides, Unmatched, the board game you mentioned, or the card game you mentioned earlier, what have you been playing?
I fell back into playing Cities Skylines, which is a city-building sim game that came out in 2016. Since then, they released a whole bunch of expansions, and they were part of a humble bundle package where you can, go on for a good cause, buy a bunch of games for a reduced price. So I was able to get all expansions for like $18. So I've been playing it again. This game's really good. I'm not sure if I have the patience to commit to it in a way that the best players probably would. But like SimCity, it's kind of like what you want out of a modern-day SimCity game. You start with a bunch of land, you build roads, you zone land for residential, commercial purposes, for industrial purposes, you build all the water networks, you do for safe good is okay, you manage tourism, you build bus stations, you build bus routes, and eventually you're trying to run your city, you can micromanage the organization, various areas, create different industries, and based on available land. And I feel like I have a pattern with it. Where I start a new city, I play for about 2 to 3 hours, reach a point where I realize my traffic is a nightmare and I don't know how to fix traffic, so I start over a different city. If you are listening to this and you play City Skylines and have a good tip for building good traffic routes and for building highways effectively, please let me know, because all my highways are a disaster and never fixes my traffic problems. But yeah, I enjoy playing City Skylines for 2 to 3 hours at a time, realizing I would never be a good city planner, then quitting and then playing it next day. It's a good game, and I wish I was better at it. I wish I had the patience to really go in all the menus and learn how to build subways and learn how to properly get real highway systems going, because right now my cities are massive metropolises full of entirely little roads around them is horrible, and my schools are burning down because my fire trucks can't get to schools in town because our road systems are completely messed up. So yeah, it's really good, and I really do recommend that.
Pull up.
Style where
Pull up.
it's realistic if you zoom in, sort of takes out
Altitude.
photography look.
Altitude.
And it's not available for
Altitude.
PC. I think there's a Nintendo Switch version now, but I can't imagine playing without a mouse and keyboard. I can't even imagine trying that. Yeah, it's really good, and if you play it and have good tips, let me know. Email this show.
It feels like you like building the city, but you don't like dealing with the problems involved with running it.
All my problems can be solved by a good highway system, which I don't know how to build. It's always a mess.
How accurate do you think a game like this is to, if a real city planner like this would keep running into the same problems and running